I don't know if you're going to bring this up, but why don't you tell the rest of the commission members what was recognized in the Ashley River District last night?
Will do, yeah. So I was gonna originally save that for the end, but I guess we can start out with that because it's some really good news. The South Carolina American Planners Association recognized the Ashley Bridge District in the old South Windermere, Old Windermere, Avondale, all those neighborhoods over there. There's about 7 of them. They recognized them as the inaugural Great Neighborhood for the South Carolina Great Places Initiative through the APA group. So what the state chapter of APA did was replicate a national award, and part of the winning this means that we will have help from the state chapter to polish and finalize and submit for the national award for it. So in this coming year, we will be submitting the Ashley Bridge District as great places for the top 10 great places nationally. So it's a really fantastic award, and it gives a lot of recognition to the hard work that's gone into the Ashley Bridge District for the better part of 30 some odd years. I think it was 97 was when the first Ashley Bridge small area plan was generated by the city with the help of the community members.
So it really was a wonderful recognition considering the age of those neighborhoods and how that area developed. And I mentioned at council meeting last night that our Plan West Ashley study incorporated a lot of the wonderful amenities that those neighborhoods had, particularly with the connectivity and the availability of small stores and shops. We're going to get into a little bit about that later on in our agenda, but it was just a wonderful, I think, springboard that uses our model as we went forward with planning West Ashley and implementing some of the things that we liked about the Avondale Ashley River Bridge District. So I just want to bring that to y'all's attention while I was thinking about it. I kind of jumped ahead of you, Eric. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
That's good. There are no minutes to approve. You should have received from Eric a potential schedule for the rest of this year, including January 2022. The only change I was thinking about is that Eric had listed September the 8th, which is the last day of the Jewish holiday. Eric, what was, we got a dog barking. If somebody's got a, you don't mind muting your audio for us, please. I love dogs, but we could do that without the barking. So September the 8th is the
Rosh Hashanah.
Last day of Yom Kippur. So the only thing I see changing on here would maybe change September 8th through the 15th. So are y'all okay with the other dates listed on here?
Is the 15th Yom Kippur?
I think September the 8th is the last day of Yom Kippur. That's correct.
September 8th is Rosh Hashanah.
Yep.
So I guess September is a little hard to maneuver here. We can continue looking at some different dates in September.
What was the other comment about the 15th? I'm sorry. What was the issue?
The 15th is Yom Kippur, and the 8th is Rosh Hashanah.
Rosh Hashanah. That's what it was. I'm sorry. It was Rosh Hashanah. Okay. So we'll just look at another date on the 8th and the 15th. Look at maybe the...
I've got the 6th as Yom Kippur.
But
I also just got notified from Mr. Morgan that the 15th is when Planning Commission meets. So,
that's
some of our professional staff wouldn't be able to attend either.
All right. So everything besides September meeting Are y'all okay with the meetings in March, May, November, and January, and then maybe hold off on a meeting in July? Is that okay with you guys?
July could be a really good working.
Right. So if y'all would please note those dates down so you can avoid potential conflicts coming up through the year. I'm sure that will happen. But if go ahead and mark the March, May, November, and January dates. And we'll take it from there.
Yeah, and Peter, I already know I can't be there for the May one because my wife and I are out of town on vacation that week.
But we'll allow you to do that. Of course, if we have Zoom, you can sort of just, check in by Zoom.
It's a 6-hour time difference, so that's a negative.
All right. Well, very good. Any other questions or comments about the schedule for 2021, 2022? And we can always have more meetings if something pops up. This gives us a little flexibility. And we did that last year. We did have some other meetings that we called in, and y'all were wonderful to accommodate that. All right. So the next item on our agenda is an update from Charleston Moves on the issues with the North Bridge replacement. I think that's how I've kind of phrased it. Our wonderful Katie Zimmerman, I see her smiling face, is there. And this is some really interesting stuff that is going on. I've been in contact with Katie in some of the discussions we've been having with this issue. So Katie, I don't want to take anything else from you, and I'm gonna shut up and let you take the floor.
Cool, thanks. Eric, I think you've got my slides for folks.
I do, and are you seeing it properly this time?
Yeah.
You're not seeing the presenter view, you're seeing the actual full bleed, right?
Actual full.
All right.
All in.
Ashley always has to correct me on which one to use. So. Finally learned. Great.
So it's really good to see all of you. I feel like it's been a while. But the last time, sorry, for those of you who I've not met before, my name is Katie Zimmerman. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit called Charleston Moves. We advocate throughout Charleston County for safe and connected biking, walking, and public transit infrastructure. And one of our big priorities for years has been to bridge the Ashley. And I think we're most associated with the connection between the peninsula and West Ashley, but there are several Ashley River connections that need to be addressed. And so another one of those is the North Bridge. And Eric, if you go to the next slide. Just to orient you, because the North Bridge has a lot of different names. And I know for some of you who are born Charlestonians, you might all know it as a different name. So we're calling it the North Bridge to Cosgrove. It's, it's the Cosgrove Bridge on some maps. It's the North Bridge on others. It's the, I forget its formal, the general it was named after. It's got a lot of different names. So the North Bridge is the connection, Route 7, between North Charleston and West Ashley that gets you to Cosgrove Avenue and to I-26, for anybody who was not sure which bridge I'm talking about. So Eric, if you go to the next one. The reason why, there are several reasons why we are concerned about this. And as you all know, it is not safe to bike or walk over the North Bridge in its current state. When it was originally built in the 50s, it did have a sidewalk. When it was widened in the 70s, the sidewalk was taken. So it is a very dangerous bridge for anybody who wants to utilize it through another transportation mode. But the other issue is SCDOT sees it as a young bridge, does not see any capacity issues with this bridge. It's not getting replaced anytime soon. So when folks say, well, let's just wait until we build a new bridge and then include bike ped access on that, that's not going to happen in our lifetimes. It's just not an option. Also, relying on CARTA for folks who are not in a car. Obviously, CARTA doesn't operate 24/7. We have a lot of people who work late nights and very early mornings. And so CARTA is just it's not a viable option on its own. Next slide, Eric. As far as safety goes, we do know since 2013, if you look at the bridge itself and then the Poston Road intersection on the West Ashley side, all the way to the Azalea intersection, we have lost 3 people on bikes, and we have had 6 people injured while walking or biking this route. All 3 of those fatalities were people who were biking to or from work. These were not recreational cyclists. These were people just trying to get to or from their jobs. Next slide. So where we are, last time I appeared before you, we were really hoping to figure out something to solve this issue. What could we get the next step in place to address making this connection safer? So since that time, thankfully, Charleston County Council funded the necessary study that is missing from this project in their transportation sales tax list in 2020. So the consultants have gotten started. I think Sheila and Richard are on from Charleston County Transportation. And the consultant has been diligently working on some conceptual renderings, where a bike and pedestrian bridge would touch down on either side, what that connecting infrastructure would look like, and how much all of this would cost to actually fully engineer and install. Next slide, Eric. On either side as well, there are connecting projects that are underway. So now is a really great time to be doing this. So as you all are very well aware, Samrit and Old Town, very controversial project, but the county has sort of settled on multimodal improvements that they're going to be doing. They just recently got public comment on that latest proposal. I think things were generally positive. So we'll see a lot more connecting points for people to be able to walk and bike and get to bus shelters safely. And then on the North Charleston side, the county is working on sidewalk improvements on Azalea on the portion that is near the Low Country Food Bank. So people on either side, particularly clients of the Low Country Food Bank, will be able to walk on either side, but it's a matter of getting over that bridge. Next one, Eric. So just so you all are aware, we have been building a coalition of support from entities, and that slide came out really funny. But we have a lot of elected officials, nonprofits, law enforcement, businesses who are all actively engaged in supporting the solution of getting a bike ped bridge added to this crossing. Next one, Eric. So the next steps, which I think is the most important thing to let you all know about, this week there is a second meeting that is going to be led by the consultant and Charleston County staff with the City of North Charleston, City of Charleston staff, and also SCDOT, and Charleston Moves will sit in on that, just to sort of examine the latest with the conceptual renderings, what this is all looking like, hopefully getting a sense of a cost estimate for this project. And then the plan right now, originally a virtual public meeting was going to be hosted coming up very soon, but that's been pushed back a little bit. So we're expecting that to take place from mid-March through mid-April. Charleston Moves and the Northbridge, the Better Northbridge Coalition will be specifically focused on the ground game for outreach for that. We want to make sure we are reaching as many people as possible who care about this project, who want to weigh in on it, who want to give their insight, especially the people who are currently walking and biking over it because they have no other options. So we'll be trying to figure out safe, COVID protected ways to reach people who don't have reliable internet access to access that virtual meeting, tabling outside, meeting up at businesses, whatever we need to do to get this information out and get information back from stakeholders. Right now, the public meeting and all of these concepts, there's not a project website yet, but in the interim, we've got a page on Charleston Moves. You can just go to betternorthbridge.org, and that's where we're keeping up with all of this information right now. My big ask from you all as as commissioners, whatever opportunities you might have to help with outreach. So if you can hook us up with whatever schools, whatever neighborhood associations, any group or individuals who you have access to, who you think we need to be reaching, if you could reach out and let me know, and we can work together on making sure that we get everybody possible the information and ability to comment on this. That would be wonderful. And Eric has all my contact information that he can share with everybody who wants to help with this. And that's all I've got.
Hey, Eric, can you go back to one of those earlier slides that showed the number of fatalities and injuries?
It would have been the 4th slide, Eric.
So, Katie, thank you for that wonderful presentation and update. The numbers you see here, the 3 fatalities too many, obviously, and 6 injuries too many, obviously. But if you travel over this bridge on any regular basis, you will see a number of folks who are either walking or straddling that median that was on the very first slide on a regular basis. And to me, it's just a miracle that more folks have not been hurt or killed trying to make their way from West Ashley into North Charleston. It is I don't know the numbers, Katie, maybe you can tell us if you have that, but the number of cars, the traffic count over that bridge is really quite impressive. And, you know, they have just completed, the Department of Transportation just completed that new ingress egress overpasses for the Hugh Leatherman connection to the ports. So I would suspect those numbers are going to increase to some level as well. Just to reemphasize, what exists now is just unacceptable for our citizens. And it is consistent with our West Ashley plan about these ideas of connectivity that we've been beating about around. And what North Charleston has got planned with I call it the Pearlstein site, is another opportunity of another amenity for our residents. So there's a lot of reasons to seek to have this alternative bridge so we can have access from West Ashley to North Charleston for a million reasons that we need to do that. So I just want to reemphasize my full support for this, all that we can do to help with Charleston Moves as they're taking the lead on this. My appreciation to Charleston County Council, to Councilmember Moody for his support on this. But as Katie mentioned, and I want to just emphasize this, anything that you can think of to help with other stakeholders, I think you mentioned schools, Katie, and some other entities, we'd like for you to become engaged in that process and communicate with her any ideas that you may have to bring this to the community's awareness and to bring into the community's attention and participation and support. All those things are extremely important for us to make sure of the success of this project and getting it off the ground. We're not going to knock down North Bridge and replace it. That's not going to happen anytime soon at all. But we saw what we were able to do on the other side of the Ashley River with that bridge, and we know all things are possible if we work together with the level of cooperation we are experiencing with our partners. And y'all are part of our partners, and that's what I'm just trying to emphasize. And we'll bring Katie back in from time to time to give us other updates. But anything you can do, any thoughts that you have on helping with this is greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Katie, and thanks for the presentation. I'll be interested to hear specifically how they propose to engineer, you know, a cantilever or go under it or whatever. they're thinking about. I know it's not on the agenda, but I just thought under the circumstances, I'd take 45 seconds and tell you that the Ashley River crossing bridge is making great progress. Getting a federal grant is one thing, and then actually moving it forward. My friends at the county know better than anyone else. It's not an easy task, but after many, many steps, we got not just the grant award, but now we have the official notice to proceed from the feds. And that enabled us, City Council, to enter a contract with the design firm to get us to specific design. 30% is the first bench milestone, I guess, 30% design on the bridge. So it is moving forward. I know you probably hadn't heard a whole lot about that bike ped bridge, but it is happening. And then I want to say that when I first got elected a few years ago, and Mayor Riley sent me off to mayor's school up at Harvard for a week. One of the young mayors that I met there, who had only been a mayor for about a year, but they brought him in specifically to help share with new mayors, newly elected mayors, what the first year would be like. So that guy was Pete Buttigieg, who's going to be the Secretary of Transportation. So we do have a connection. I consider him a friend, and we'll be able to reach out to him if it ever evolves that we need to apply for another grant for the second bridge to go over the Ashley River. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Mayor, for those comments. Teresa, I think I saw your hand pop up.
Yeah, I'm just wanting to say that I'm in total support. And as far as the people that are walking the bridge, I've met many of them. They live off Orange Grove and in those areas, you know, and I talk to them a lot. They have no choice but to walk over the bridge. And to me, you know, I see them daily, and I worry every single day, will they make it across? And will they make it back? You know, a lot of the poles are bent. It's horrible to try to do it. And it needs to stop. So Katie, yes, I have contacts. I can get you talking to them, excellent, to the actual one walking it daily.
I figured if anybody knew, you would. You know everybody.
And they do. They are begging to have a different way across. Many don't have bikes to attach to the bus, or they're working at places where, you know, there is no bus running. So they don't have a choice.
Hey, Katie, there are two questions, one from Blair Wade and one from Ed Sutton. The first question is, what funding sources have been identified? Will it be split between cities? And then the other question is, when can we expect to see conceptual renderings for the pedestrian bridge?
I'll answer the second one first. So we should, when the virtual public meeting is open, and as I mentioned, you know, the county's consultants are hoping to be able to do that by mid-March. That's when we should see some basic renderings of what this could look like, and more specifically where it would start and end. And I think it's looking like now the bike ped bridge wouldn't actually need to go under the existing bridge to cross, because that, once you're on the North Bridge side, that side of the road is easier to navigate, the interchange, the entrances and exits to I-26. So all of those kind of, you know, nail biting questions, that's exactly what the consultants are looking at. So we should, as soon as the public meeting opens, we'll be able to see those designs. And again, conceptual, not fully engineered. As far as funding sources that have been identified, we don't have any that have been committed. other than the counties paying for the study itself that was needed. So we're going to have to, that's going to have to be the next big push, is all of us working together to identifying funding sources for engineering and construction to get this thing put in. And I envision that would be very similar to the Ashley River Bicycle and Pedestrian Bridge, which is being paid for through a multitude of sources. So predominantly through that federal build grant that Mayor Tecklenburg mentioned, but also the city of Charleston County and NUSC all contributed funds to pay for the match that was required to apply for that federal grant. So we're going to really need to look at all of our options and see how many of those we can try to work with. It would also be wonderful if the South Carolina Department of Transportation was a part of this, actively part of this.
We say that with a big smile and a smirk on our face. All right. Anybody else have a question? Yeah, Councilman Brady. Yes, sir.
Less so a question, but I just wanted to let Katie know, as someone who serves on the Bike and Ped Commission with you, I definitely appreciate your work, but also just in my capacity as Vice Chair for Traffic and Transportation Committee, I'd be honored, Katie, if you would list me in support on your support page as well.
Thank you. I will do that.
Thank you, Councilwoman Brady.
Katie, same, please list me.
Great, well done. All right. Yes, sir, Kenneth. Ken.
I just wanted to say also that I strongly support this project. And I did have a question for Katie, which is at the last presentation last year in March, you mentioned doing a traffic count or a count of the people who use it either by foot or by bike. And I was just wondering if that was ever done.
That's a great question, and also good memory. We were planning to, and then COVID, and you volunteered to help with that. That's right. That's why you're so good. COVID threw us off with that. We weren't sure at the time we originally wanted to do it if it was safe to have volunteers doing that. But we've thought about it more, and I think to get an accurate count, it would need to be at very early and late hours. And so I suspect we would need to work with the police to do that. So one of the things we're thinking about is for the public comment period, when we're out tabling or including in the comment itself, if that's possible, a little bit of a survey to ask if people are currently walking and biking over, where they're trying to get to, what they'd like to see improved, which I think we can all guess what they'd like to see improved. So I think the survey might get us a better snapshot than standing out there. It doesn't mean we won't do that, but I want to try the survey first, since COVID threw us off with all of that.
And I think that's an important question and important answer to see how that traffic count does play into all this. Another question came in, Katie, you can add Councilmember Carol Jackson to your coalition.
Thank you, Councilmember.
All right, any other questions, comments, suggestions from folks with Katie? Katie, we'll probably bring you back in later on this year for another update, even if this is a quick update, but we want to make sure we're tracking the progress and reaffirm our support for this project. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Eric, our next item of business is the West Ashley EIDL and PPP loans. So Meg, are you going to lead us off on a discussion with that?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
This is our wonderful Meg Thompson, everybody. I hope you all had the opportunity to interact with Meg. It does a wonderful job for the city. So on neighborhoods. So Meg, you got the floor now. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Councilmember. Hi, everyone. My name is Meg Thompson. I am with the city's Business and Neighborhood Services Office, and I am here tonight to talk to you about two federal programs. Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. I lost your faces. Okay, anyway, we'll keep going. All right, so these two federal programs you've probably heard a lot about in the news are PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, and EIDL, which is Economic Injury Disaster Loan. The Small Business Administration released this data in December to share who had received this money, where it had gone to, how much of it, all of that. And as we started to do some digging through this, we noticed that the majority of the money had gone to West Ashley. So that's why I'm here tonight to talk to you a little bit more detail about that. First off, I do want to say that this is messy data. So this is about 15, 20 spreadsheets that we had to go through to get all of this. We were able to do so, but with caveats, we were going through someone else's data. Eric's messaging me. Can you guys see everything okay?
Meg,
Yep.
can you put it into full screen so they can see the charts when they come up? It's right now it's like showing your notes and all.
Sorry guys.
Do you see the little book thing? This is what I was talking about with the last one. You see the little book icon right next to the usual presentation button at the bottom?
Gotcha. That better?
There you go.
There we go.
All right, so the first chunk of money I'm going to talk about is the smallest, and these are the economic disaster loan grants. So there is actually a portion of EIDL that were grants, which are forgivable, means you don't have to pay them back, right? So of these, about a little less than 2,000 of them went to West Ashley. On average, they were about $3,000. There was a cap on these though. They couldn't be larger than 10. So this kind of shows you how that was distributed out. So again, a lot of these were on the smaller side. These were small grants that went to very small businesses in West Ashley. Another chunk of money were the actual EIDL loans. Now, again, still less than 2,000 of these, but you could apply for a much larger amount. On average, about $50,000. Now, when we look at the spread of that, most of them were less than $10,000. The biggest chunk of money were the Paycheck Protection loans. Of these, again, still less than 2,000 going to West Ashley, but these you could apply for a whole lot more money. The average was about $88,000, but the median, so the number that shows up in the actual middle, is about 22. Again, these went to predominantly small businesses. The number of employees, the largest one we found was about 460, but the overwhelming majority had like one, they were a single person self-employed, or they had one employee. Again, the spread here is pretty significant. I will say that the rules did change several times with PPP, and the cap on what you could apply for changed. So at one time it was greater, so that's why you're seeing those numbers on the way far end. But that was limited back as we went through the process. So that's the number of loans and the amounts. This is by NAICS code for PPP. So this is what industries received the money. You can see a lot went to accommodation food services, professional services, retail, and then healthcare and social assistance were kind of the four biggest. This one down here is kind of a miscellaneous services. So there are other options out there I wanted to mention for businesses that may not have qualified for PPP or EIDL. For example, there were some stipulations that you had to be in business before mid-February to be able to apply for some of these. So there are options such as the revolving loan fund that we received funding for through the Economic Development Administration. We're doing this in partnership with the Charleston LDC. Those funds are still available. So minimum of 10,000, maximum of 100,000, 4% interest rate. And this is mostly working capital. So you can hire or retain employees or fund enhancement improvements that have to do with complying with COVID safety. You can go directly to the LDC to apply for these. If you or someone you know, your business is still looking for funds, strongly recommend that you reach out to them. That's a revolving loan fund, so it will replenish, but we're hoping to really push out that money and get it to folks that need it. And then finally, you may have heard right around the holidays, the federal government did a second round of stimulus funding. So there will be another round of PPP, and we have an agreement with our local SBA office to do programming with them. So they have agreed to do a special webinar to answer questions for folks. So could be things like, I got PPP before, can I apply again? What banks should I go to? How do I get my other PPP loan forgiven? All of that. William Furman with the SBA is going to be on with us to talk about that, as well as Paul Featheringgill with the Small Business Development Center, who can provide assistance to individuals who are looking to apply for these. So strongly encourage you, if you're interested, to join us on Wednesday, January 27th to learn more about that. And with that, I will stop for any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Meg, for that. Anybody want to jump in and ask any questions about, Meg, didn't we divide this up into other areas of the city as well? I mean, can you sort of give us like a comparison with other parts of the city as to how this sort of money being distributed looked at with other areas?
So in terms of the number of loans for both EIDL and PPP, almost 50% of the ones that went to Charleston had a West Ashley zip code.
Everybody catch that okay? Okay. All right. Anybody have questions or comments for Meg? Well, it gives us a good barometer, Meg, and so then the next round will be coming up. I think you've got on.
It's open and available now,
Okay.
but we still expect people to have a bunch of questions. It actually opened this week, but our contact at the SBA was still receiving guidance. So we're hoping by the 27th, he'll be in good shape to actually answer questions and give people guidance. So even if you're thinking about applying and you're not sure, it would be a really good opportunity to join us then.
Very good.
All right, thank you all.
Well, thanks for going through that, and you did it in very efficient order. I may add it.
Sorry, I do tend to talk fast through these. So if anyone has questions afterwards, I'm happy to fill you in on more details and dig a little deeper.
Well done. Thank you, Meg. Appreciate it. Okay. And I just got a text message that Councilmember Appel has joined us on this meeting. I know that he was interested in both the Better Northbridge Coalition update, and he's also on Avondale Business District formula overlay that we're going to talk about next. And Eric, am I missing any other city council members or other elected officials? I know that Carol Jackson has apparently joined us, and Councilmember Ross Appel. Anybody else I'm missing?
Those appear to be the only two that I'm catching, unless they're using other names that I'm not familiar with on the attendee list.
And so, council members, if y'all, I don't see y'all on my screen, so please chime in if you want to ask anything or join in. Certainly want to make sure I recognize you. And I did see Mr. Turner from the county here earlier, so I should have recognized him and express my appreciation for the hard work he's been doing for our road improvements as well. All right, so Lauren, are you going to take the lead on this discussion with this Avondale business?
Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you. Welcome for joining us, and appreciate our prior discussions we've had with this issue. So, and this does touch on Councilmember Ross Appel's district as well. So we'll go ahead with that introduction.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, Commissioners and Mayor. My name is Lauren Galatly, and I am the Interim Executive Director with an organization called Low Country Local First. We are a nonprofit organization that has been working in this area since 2007. And we exist to help build a stronger local economy and to support local independent businesses. So I am here this evening after speaking to City Council back in November to share this idea of a formula business zoning pilot project in the Avondale area. So it was a very initial discussion with City Council at that time, and they suggested that I come and speak with you, with this commission. So that is the very quick background on why I'm here this evening. And Eric, if you don't mind bringing up a short presentation that I'd love to share with you all. Thank you. So I am here to share this idea of formula business zoning. And just to go ahead and off the bat, a formula business is essentially a chain business. So this is a policy or regulatory tool that has been put in place in more than 20 other communities across the country. And we are, as an organization, suggesting that Avondale would be a really wonderful location to pilot this as a new type of zoning district for the city of Charleston. So next slide, please, Eric. Wonderful. So why are we talking about this? I'm really glad that Meg shared that fascinating info just before me on the emergency relief funding that so many small businesses have unfortunately had to take on as debt and apply for during this pandemic. And the pandemic is a big reason why we're talking about this policy tool in general. As you know, small businesses are sometimes at an inherent disadvantage as compared to larger corporations and chain corporations, and that they're doing everything themselves. And the owner is often the operator, is often the marketing person, is often filling every single role within a busy small business. And so this is one regulatory tool that in this COVID environment, when so many small businesses are hurting and suffering, many on the brink of closing, many already closed, this is one way we can help level the playing field. So the goal of a formula business overlay district is essentially to help maintain or even create the unique character of a neighborhood commercial district. We acknowledge at the outset of this conversation, chain businesses have a place in our communities. We're not saying they don't, but there is a way to guide where those might be in the community and acknowledge that some small neighborhood commercial districts are best suited serving their community and their residents with small independent businesses. So this helps promote a great economic diversity and tenant balance. And putting one of these overlays in place really helps to build the ecosystem for local businesses and ensure that there are adequate spaces for local businesses to get started. So I mentioned this is in place in many communities across the country, very large and very small. This has been in place, to our knowledge, going back to the early 2000s. So this is not a new concept. This is tested. This has been in place in communities for quite a while. And we also have local precedent. The town of Sullivan's Island has had a measure in place for a number of years that specifically allows, that prohibits any chain or formula, retail or food and beverage. And we worked with the city of Folly Beach back in 2018 to pass an ordinance that prohibits most types of chain businesses in their central commercial district. Next slide, please. So common definition. Most communities that have this in place consider a formula business one that has 10 or more establishments or locations anywhere in the world and that has standardized features like logo, trademark, uniforms, decor, and merchandise. So if a business meets those two criteria, it would be considered a formula business for the purposes of this ordinance. The really great thing that we found and heard from other communities about this is that it's extremely flexible. The ordinance can be written based on the community needs. The definition of formula is flexible. You can set that bar at 20 establishments anywhere in the world, at 50 establishments anywhere in the world. Another important piece is this applies only to new businesses. So if City Council were to decide that we wanted to pilot a formula business overlay district in Avondale, it would not impact any existing businesses and only impact any new businesses that were to want to locate within the district and met the criteria of formula business. You can also determine what types of businesses you want to include. For Folly Beach, they decided to have a pretty broad definition and apply to most business types, but they decided to exclude large accommodations businesses. So they were really essentially speaking to the Tides Hotel that is there right now, which currently is locally owned, but they wanted to keep their options open for the future if that were to change hands. Next slide, Eric. So why are we talking about Avondale? You know, Avondale is independent businesses. It is very entrepreneurial. It is this amazing enclave of vibrant local businesses right now. And so this would help ensure that future for the district, because that future is not a given. Formula or chain businesses could certainly come in to build on the vibrancy that's already been created in Avondale, which we know is a beloved part of West Ashley. So we really see that as a selling point for property owners, businesses, and residents, because it provides certainty that that great mix of independent businesses would remain into the future. And so we also see this as a great opportunity to pilot in Avondale and then potentially look at other neighborhood commercial districts where this might be appropriate. And most importantly, it supports the Plan West Ashley goals. I noted 3 here that were directly taken from the language of Plan West Ashley to cultivate all kinds of small and local businesses so they can thrive. West Ashley will lose its character if new development does not accommodate small local businesses. And then, of course, building on the success that we see in Avondale, the look and feel of Avondale. Next slide, Eric. So this is a rendering that we produce, Low Country Local First. It's just an illustration for the sake of this conversation to sort of help us envision the types of chains or small businesses that could potentially come into these building types. So you can see at the top, you know, existing businesses that we know and love in the Avondale area. And then just a conceptual idea of chain type businesses that might come into the district. Next slide. So we are at the very, very beginning of this conversation. As I mentioned, we shared basically the same presentation with City Council in November. We are at the beginning of a potential outreach process. So Low Country Local First only wants to help work on this project if the community in Avondale is in support of this, the businesses, the residents there. So I'm here hoping to hear all of your feedback this evening as you know, some important voices in this area and in West Ashley, and then to potentially explore ideas for doing some public meetings to help let both businesses and residents know about this idea and get their feedback and potentially move the idea forward. So I know that's a lot of information. I'm happy to take questions at this time.
I believe I saw Ms. Jackrell had her hand raised.
Mr. Chair, I'm not hearing you, so I'm not sure if you're calling on me. I'm going to go ahead. Thank you for the presentation, Lauren. I have two questions. The first is, I know you're early in this process, but is it Low Country Local's intention that this would be an opt-in overlay, or that this would just be a change in the zoning code?
It would be a change in the zoning code. So a zoning overlay, and the form that it takes, there's several different options, and I'll try to make this super quick. There is the option to do a full prohibition of formula businesses within the district footprint, however it might be set. That's the option that Folly Beach took in their district. There's also the option of capping the total square footage for formula businesses within the district. And then there is an option of putting in place a variance process. So if a new formula business would want to go into the district, they would have to obtain a variance. So does that help answer your question?
It does. And then the follow-up to that is, can you provide some additional color on how you arrived at the threshold of 10 locations?
The 10 is based on the most common definition that we've seen implemented in ordinances in other communities. That's also the bar that Folly Beach set in their ordinance, and they based it off of other written ordinances elsewhere in the country.
Okay, thank you. I think at the high level, as we're entering this conversation, off the top of my head, I know one very successful local business, as an example, Urban Nirvana would be excluded. And I think they're really a great example of the type of business that we would want to encourage in a neighborhood environment like this. So that might be something that I suggest that you take a second look at. Secondarily, I think going back to the fact that it would be proposed as a zoning change versus an opt-in overlay, that could create an undue burden on a property owner, or could be considered a down zoning if they are not allowed to have corporate tenants. It could devalue their property. So that could certainly be a challenge for members of that community.
Thank you for that feedback.
I had a question as well. So in Avondale, currently there are several banks that I guess you would say are formula businesses in a sense, where they have more than 10 locations, and they obviously have uniform branding throughout all their locations. Are you looking at specific business types? Like, are you looking at just restaurants, retail, cafes? Is there like a list of types of businesses? Or you're not going to get a bank that's community. Presumably you're not going to find a bank that only has 1 or 2 locations. There are some, but not many. So I guess I would just wonder if that's what you mean by a variance in terms of allowing certain ones to enter, even if they have that.
Thank you for that question. I think many communities have opted to exclude, like financial institutions and those types of businesses where there are far fewer local options. For example, we're having a parallel conversation about doing this in the Park Circle business area. And we know very much that they want a full service grocery store in that area. And so I think the conversation there would be that full service grocery stores would be excluded and not included in the types of businesses that would be considered formula. So I think we don't have a list right now. for this Avondale pilot. I think that's very much part of the outreach and community conversation that I'd want to hear feedback on, what types of businesses would potentially be included.
Thanks, Lauren. You don't hear me now? I think
Yes.
My mute. Okay. Councilwoman Moody, did you want to weigh in on something?
Yeah, I did, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Kenny and Ashley stole a little bit of my thunder, but to Kenny's point, several, like those banks, depending on how far the district would be, you've got South State and Bank of America down there, and then the other bank, and those buildings are set up to be banks. They've got a drive-through, they've got all the, all that stuff. So that would be a concern. And many of us, I look at the screen, remember a time not too long ago where there was a lot of empty buildings in Avondale. I think we're well past that, but if a landlord has got an empty property for 3 or 6 months, they don't necessarily care about an overlay. They're looking to get a tenant in there to get somebody paying the rent to pay the debt. So I think that goes to Ashley's point about a downsizing. So I think you've got to have huge buy-in from the property owners, and future property owners would need to know that's there as well. That could certainly impact the purchase price.
I'm going to ask somebody who has been engaged in this process a little bit longer than I have. The city did not annex South Windermere and Avondale, I don't think, until the 1960s. And so when you go back to Lauren's earlier slides and you see the size and scope of those buildings that were erected, I'm wondering if that was the result of just, that was just what people were building and expecting, or if there were certain ordinances dealing with the size and scope of those buildings, or it just sort of happened out of, people were just trying to remain consistent with the nature of the character of the neighborhood. And the reason I bring that up to our attention, because the points that Ashley and Councilwoman Moody and Ken have brought up are important points, but you see a level of consistency with those buildings. And I think part of this plan is to maintain that level of consistency, because it adds to the nature and the character, which is part of our plan, West Ashley overall. So Charlie, I'm kind of looking at you as sort of our unofficial historian, you and Ms. Hamilton on this. And from a historical standpoint, do you know how these areas developed?
My guess would be that water and sewer had a lot to do with that. Those buildings, when they were built, they predated at least sewer over here. Sewer is actually what escalated the annexation process over here in the early 60s. And there were, as far as residential properties, there are a lot of properties over here that were built with septic tanks, for instance, and very soon after they were built, sewer came into this area and they hooked up to the sewer. And when, we still got septic tanks in the yards, but we're hooked to the sewers. But it does have a limiting effect on businesses, and I suspect that was a factor.
Yeah, probably makes just as much sense as anything else. So, Councilmember Appel, I know that you're on. Did you want to weigh in and offer any insights or suggestions on the?
Thank you, Councilman Shayed. I appreciate that, and Lauren, thank you so much for making this presentation and for being such a great collaborator with the city, not just on this, but with the other small business initiatives we've been undertaking, particularly in the very difficult year we just had and are continuing to sort of labor through. And, to answer your question about the historical elements here, I was not around at the time of any of this, but I'd be willing to bet good money that all of the development form you see in Avondale predated zoning. I think that most of the neighborhoods in this part of the city predate zoning and were developed outside of the city. It was a totally different day back then. So really the built form you see there is a response to what the market was looking for at the time. You had these developments that sprang up in the wake of World War II, Burns Downs, Avondale, et cetera. And these were, you know, commercial buildings and commercial uses that were responding to serve those communities. And you really didn't see the sort of very auto-dependent, parking-centered development codes emerge until the 60s, 70s, et cetera. That's one of the issues we're dealing with downtown right now, is because downtown King Street has a lot of the same issues where, you know, there you've got building forms that predate zoning and minimum parking requirements by a century or more sometimes. So it's a really fascinating issue. And, you know, I like to keep an open mind about very, you know, innovative planning and zoning techniques. I think some good thoughts and concerns have been voiced this evening. You know, I think that there's you know, I mean, let's first recognize that, you know, Avondale is one of the most unique, impressive, high character areas in the city. I mean, especially West Ashley, no question about it. But in my view, I think Avondale is just scratching the surface. And as someone pointed out, there's still more vacancies than I'd like to see there, and that predates COVID. And I think that some of the challenges you're seeing there, and I hate to kind of keep gravitating back to my my hobby horse about these minimum parking requirements, but I mean, it's what's preventing a lot of businesses from opening right now in Avondale, and for good reason. I mean, there really is not, you know, you don't have the kind of predominance of parking garages like you see on the peninsula. And I know that some of our planning efforts for Avondale call for that in the future. But you know, it's a delicate balance here. But I think that we're doing exactly what we should be doing right now, which is talking to the community, talking to the stakeholders, talking to the experts in the West Ashley revitalization process. I'm talking about the committee here that is welcomed me to participate this evening. And I just think that we ought to, you know, put all the considerations onto the table. And as we continue this discussion, we can evaluate whether this is something that makes sense for us. But I think we all share a goal and a desire to see more small businesses thrive in our community. And the things that make Avondale great, we continue to encourage. So I hope some of that was helpful, and I think this is a great process that's underway, and just want to thank Lauren and the commission and everybody else for engaging with this very important issue. Thank you, and thank you for the time.
Thank you. And Councilmember Jackson, did you want to weigh in on anything?
Actually, yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate being on the regular Zoom. I am a big supporter of this opportunity in general, and in particular, I think Avondale, of all the neighborhoods that's cohesive and has a cadre of property owners that are supportive to the business owners, are definitely ripe for the whole process that Councilmember Appel and Lauren has put in front of y'all to begin a very intentional season of conversation and brainstorming about what this would or could look like. What I love about this type of overlay is that it truly is customized to the district that it would be established in. So it's not a cookie cutter formula. If you don't do it right, it doesn't work. Doing it right means that it makes sense for the individual properties and the district that you would be describing. I have two just sort of real life reasons that I'm so excited about this having been a tool that is now becoming enough of a precedent around the country. I first came to Charleston as an employee of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. And my favorite program to support as the Director of Administration was the Main Street program. And unfortunately, the trust is a shadow of itself in terms of the organization that it was as a consulting set of services to communities just like Charleston. But what I loved about Main Street is they went into the little small towns that were drying up, you know, because of the big box stores that were being built on the edge of town and taking away the business from the locals that had created the Main Street. So what you have in Avondale truly is a Main Street model. I'm sure the sewers dictated it, but the fact that the buildings are connected and walkable, and in a neighborhood where people, you know, maybe they had their one family car by the 30s. I doubt it. I bet people were still walking to do their shopping. It was much more like Europe in terms of everybody had their favorite little vendors, and people really used their neighborhood as an outdoor community center. And that's what was so exciting about the Trust Main Street program, when they went in there and did a holistic set of conversations and charrettes and design and appreciation for what they had on Main Street. Basically, they took off a lot of the vinyl siding that had been put on in the 60s, took down the Rexall drugstore signs, and brought back, you know, the individualized local retail and the opportunities that were traditionally found on every Main Street. So fast forward to my life, I lived in Falls Church, Virginia before I moved to Charleston. And Falls Church was a little town of 10,000 people surrounded by the two biggest and most prosperous counties in Northern Virginia on the Virginia side of DC. And Falls Church thought that it was always going to be the little Main Street community that Avondale is today. So they didn't do anything to protect themselves. They just figured they were going to be, you know, passed over by the bigger corporations and retailers and operations that wanted to be in Fairfax and wanted to be in Arlington. But lo and behold, you know, prosperity came, and they had no protections over the streets that those residents of that little small town thought would always be part of their culture and their society. So I do think that, you know, Avondale is the absolute right place to start this as a learning lab and a testing ground. And I really hope that you all go for it in terms of just making it the best opportunity to appreciate what Avondale is. Thanks.
Thanks, Carol. Appreciate that. So Eric, I think there are some comments below. We can take those now if we want to address those.
Yes, sir. You got it. So one of them was from Michael Tui. I think that's how you pronounce your last name. He just wants some contact information for you, Lauren. So I passed that along through the Q&A area. And the other three are from James Ward. James Ward would be happy to help you study this issue further. He feels that small professional offices may be a good second story addition to this district, and that we need to make sure that these small types of business centers are an integral part of the transit planning moving forward.
Okay. I'm gonna call on Chris from Oregon. Chris, can you give us sort of a brief idea of what the zonings ordinances restrict or allow in this area right now?
Well, it's all pretty much general business, Mr. Chairman. There might be some limited business, I believe.
And so what does that entail? What is that? What is allowed in this area? Sort of a general speaking part.
I mean, all types of retail, restaurants. If it's got GB, I'm trying to remember. I think the south side of Savannah has GB. That is allowed to go, you know, 24 hours a day. If it's LB, it's allowed to go like 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. But all types of retail, all types of restaurants. You know, you get residential is also allowed. Offices are allowed.
How about height and that kind of stuff?
I think it's about 55 feet.
Yeah. Okay. So the reason I'm asking those questions is how the existing land use would impact with what Lauren has brought to our attention would some of those things restrict height on new construction? We're talking about, you've got general businesses can come in, limited businesses can come in. This is not going to restrict that kind of activity with this overlay, but it would restrict these formula businesses that she defined earlier, the Jimmy John kind of places, that sort of stuff. But that would be the only real tweaking that we would have with our land use planning for that. Is that a fair statement?
It would be an overlay, so you can put additional restrictions in an overlay on the different categories that are there. And I saw Eric pulled up. It is almost exclusively general business. There's a little bit of limited business, I believe, where Triangle is. I mean, if council sees fit, you can write, different types of restrictions in an overlay. The county has done that a good bit in certain areas, and we've done that with them. We've done it in reference to, Folly Road. Because Folly Road has some general business and some limited business, as well as other categories. And we have an overlay on that further restricts those. So it is possible to do that in a standard district like GB or LB.
So if I could real quick, I just want to make sure that we're not, as Christopher said, an overlay, once you start doing an overlay, you can put additional items into it. But currently what Low Country Local First is talking about, it would be really limited to, and Lauren, feel free to jump in on this. If I understand this correctly, nationally, what they typically do is that they are limiting the stylistic elements that a national chain would have. So for example, McDonald's would not be allowed to have a sign out in front. If McDonald's, say, wanted to locate where Triangle Char Bar is currently, they would not be allowed to have a monument sign or a pole sign with the golden arches on it. The building would not be allowed to have the typical trademarks around it. And that's typically how these are approached. So that way it is not violating the free business, free enterprise standards that are typically, you can't say that we are going to not allow Jimmy John's, but allow a local sub company to come in here. Typically you can't do that, but you can say we're not going to allow national chains to come in here that have standardized elements such as the neon sign for Jimmy John's, things of that nature. And that's a way that these ordinances are typically written. But to Christopher's point, once you start putting one in place, you can have other elements that get drawn into it. But I just want to make sure that we're clear that it would kind of be two separate elements right now.
Charlie,
just to be clear, that pink strip that you showed there, that's general business, correct? And general business is the highest intensity commercial zoning that we have in the city, correct?
Yes, sir. So general business is located, this is where like Aldi Law and Mellow Mushroom is at. The bank is over here, DB's.
So if we got an application that
the fire station all the way
fit
across
with the highest intensity zoning classification that we have in the city, if we got a request for something of that nature in this zone, we would have no public process to object to it, correct?
Not necessarily. We still have the Commercial Design Review Board, which would hold just about every structure in this area, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3 meets the 50 years or older classification for DRB. So they would have to get permission or to demolish. And then at the same time, they have to go through the Design Review Board process for any new construction. Then in addition to that, we do have, as Councilmember Appel was talking about, we have restrictions when it comes to parking load. And we already have some uses that have not been allowed to come into this just because of how our suburban parking code really restricts them out again.
Thank you.
And Eric, while you've got that screen up, those areas that are not shaded in, those are areas outside the city jurisdiction, right?
That is correct. The rectangles and parcels that you see in just white, those would be currently in the county.
Yeah, which is really another complicating problem for all of us, is because, and I noticed this over on parts of St. Andrews and within my district, we run into conflicts with county zoning ordinances and city zoning ordinances. So the idea would be some kind of level of university consistency. And of course, I think that the comments that Councilmember Moody and Ken and Ashley have brought up are really valid points. You want to revitalize without stunning revitalization and folks wanting to engage and invest in the area. But at the same time, you know, we started off this meeting talking about the award that the Ashley River District got was because of the uniqueness of the area and the particular character of the area. And that's, I think, what Councilmember Jackson was bringing out as well. So there's got to be a way to kind of accomplish both of these goals, to maintain the character, which is an integral part of our plan was actually, but not have this get in the way of revitalization as well. So, you know, certainly people like to come into these areas, particularly downtown, because the shops and the restaurants are not something they can get back at home. They can always go to a McDonald's at home. They can always go to a Best Buy at home. They want to come to Charleston and experience something a little bit different, so maybe a little offbeat, something unique. That enhances the whole community at the same time. But we don't want to create roadblocks either. I mean, that's the trick with all of this, is how do we accomplish both of those goals. Trudy, did I see that you wanted to chime in on something? I don't see you visually, but I don't know if you wanted to add anything to this conversation.
Am I on speaker?
You are on speaker.
I really did. I was putting lotion on my hands, so I got. Oh. The only thing that I would say is that when the Sergeant Jasper started out, there was a lot of concern on how large and how big, and it is my back door. Obviously, I work West Ashley and live downtown, and I think we can all agree that it has impacted the environment. We've got water on Lockwood that has never been there before. And we have a hugely, hugely large structure that was not that size before. And as you come into the city, good, bad, or otherwise, it is forever changed as you're approaching the city. And so whatever you're feeling about it, I think that as you state, we have to be very, very, very careful as we look at these issues, because you don't want to not have the right mix. You certainly want to have these local businesses. We want to support our local businesses, which is a whole nother topic. We don't want to use the flavor of where we are. And I think that it can happen, as Carol Jackson said, you know, with the blink of an eye. So I think you got to be really, really careful on what is and is not allowed. And it's everything everybody stated, but I do think it's worth repeating, because we have seen construction that is overwhelming.
Yep, good points. Good points. So, Lauren, where do we go from here? What's our next step as we do on this some more?
Well, I would I would love to hear, Chairman, your thoughts, or Councilmember Appel or Jackson's. Additionally, if we have general interest on at least pursuing this idea for further study and community feedback, then Low Country Local First can devote time and resources to setting up some most likely virtual public information and outreach meetings for residents and businesses and property owners, and start the process of gathering feedback. And I'm excited to learn more about how this commission functions, and if there's a subset that I should be working with to potentially draft an ordinance in concert with the staff at the city. I'm very open to how you all might want to proceed, while I know we need to do some public outreach to gather feedback.
So maybe, let me make this suggestion to start off with. Perhaps we take the council members who are on the commission. I'm looking at Councilmember Brady, myself, and Councilmember Waring. Then, of course, Councilmember Appel, since this is his district. And let's skull this a little bit more among the four of us, five of us, Councilmember Waring, Brady, Appel, and myself, and bring in Councilmember Moody because he's on county council. And this is in his backyard as well. And let's look at this first as to how this, what it would look like. Actually, I think it's sort of a rubber meets the road test. And let's kick that around a little bit, bring this back in front of the commission after we have done that some. So we keep the dialogue open and the discussion going with this. And then we can come back and report to this commission, hopefully at our next meeting in, what is that, Eric? May?
March.
Yeah, March.
Yes, March.
That gives us a little bit of a time opportunity to do that. And then you've got the voices on the commission, including Councilmember Appel, whose district this is impacting directly. And then we can come back and draw on other people's comments and insights on this, if that makes sense. So let's circle back, and then with an idea of coming back to this commission with something more concrete, and see where this all leads us. That sound good?
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And thank you all for your time this evening.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think that's all we had on our agenda. I know we've got a public comment period. I think we've kind of addressed that, didn't we, Eric, with
we have more. We have many public comments. So we have 4 comments that were submitted through our Innovate Charleston website. And I'll start off with the first one from LeGrand Elbash. They are writing in support of the effort to create a better North Bridge connecting North Charleston and West Ashley. Losing a single human life due to an inadequate infrastructure is too much, but the fact that numerous lives have been lost due to the North Bridge singular focus on moving cars to the complete exclusion of other modes of transportation. The current bridge design says, to people without cars, you don't matter. Many people in our community can't afford the high cost of owning a car, or they would prefer other modes of transportation. It is past time that we retrofit the North Bridge and make it safe for people on foot, in a wheelchair, or on a bike to cross the bridge. Next one is from Robin Hargett. Safe pedestrian and bike access across the North Bridge is essential to the revitalization of West Ashley and all the well-being of Low Country residents residing on both sides of the bridge. Our community needs this if we are going to truly be a thriving community for all. Next one is from Ashley Peel. The North Bridge is gateway to West Ashley from North Charleston. It is where travelers leaving the airport often get their first glimpse of Charleston. It crosses the beautiful scenic Ashley River, yet it is an eyesore that does nothing to promote the image of Charleston we'd like to project. More importantly, it is a critical connection point that too many without transportation are forced to cross by foot or bike in order to get to their jobs, childcare, or groceries. Without safe bike and pedestrian access, we'll continue to see unfortunate vehicle pedestrian incidents on this dangerous crossing. Building a state-of-the-art bridge that recognizes its function as a multimodal through pass, as well as a landmark, is not just a social justice issue, it is an economic issue. It has the potential to revitalize that part of West Ashley, bring jobs to the business park there, homes to the waterfront there, consumer-focused businesses around the retail park there, and it would allow us to incorporate safe pedestrian passage, critical for so many low-income residents of both North Charleston and West Ashley. Please capitalize on this opportunity to improve the lives of residents while making an impact on tourism and the economy. The final one submitted on the website was, I support adding a bike ped path to the North Bridge, and that was by Sarah Schumann. And then we have several emails that were sent in. There's Josh Slayton. He says that I'm not sure I can attend the Zoom meeting today, but wanted to share my local experience regarding this project. I commute over the bridge to work in the mornings and in the late afternoons most weekdays. I think it is important that I bring up something that I see on a regular basis that makes me very uncomfortable. At least twice a week during my commute, I see a bicyclist making their way over the bridge during my commute. Every time I see it, I spend the rest of my commute thinking how crazy that person is for attempting to cross the bridge during rush hour or even at all, and hoping they are safe. The problem is the person is always doing the same thing, bobbing and weaving through the vertical traffic cone poles, trying to stay in the center median. The center median is too narrow to ride on one side or the other, so the person's always walking their bike, pushing it around one traffic cone at a time. Each time they push the bike around a cone, they look behind them, and time is so no cars are coming. It is so dangerous and causes me to try to move over to another lane every time I see it, just to give the person a few seconds of comfort. Aside from the personal safety of the bicyclist, drivers are inevitably slowing down, changing lanes, and otherwise reacting around these bikes, causing traffic slowdowns. I encourage everyone to consider this bridge improvement to drive the bridge at 7:45 in the morning and think about a person walking a bike around the cones over the bridge. This will immediately convey a sense of urgency to improve the pedestrian bike access on this section of road. Where's my next one? The next one is from Angela Wick. Hello, I was a resident of Park Circle and have now moved into the Park Shore community. Both areas are straddling the North Bridge. I cannot say how many times I have said a prayer for the pedestrians and drivers that I have seen fall victim to this bridge. Something must be done. Pedestrians and bikers alike need a way to cross this bridge safely. I would also love to see some speed limit enforcement on this bridge. Please let us know how we can help get this study in place. It is overdue. This one is from Beverly Rivers. It is past the point to have discussions about flyovers for, is it past the point to have discussions about flyovers for pedestrians and bikers entered into the mix of innovative ways to connect Northbridge and all subdivisions on both sides of Orange Grove Road to each other, and all the ideas for the redevelopment of the Piggly Wiggly site, not to mention connecting in the middle of the shopping center, which might open more opportunities for business to thrive there. Instead of a low line, these parts of the city could boast about a high line, just wondering. Low Country Local First proposed a formula business district overlay for the Avondale Business District to be discussed at WARC, and I fully support this proposal. Rhonda Greaves. Blair Wade, I am a resident of Charlestown Estate 2. I am contacting you in support of the Better North Bridge Coalition and feasibility study for the bicycle pedestrian facilities on the bridge and Cosgrove interchange. This link is an important connection between City of Charleston and North Charleston, providing future connections between parks, access to grocery stores and commercial areas, and another entry to downtown. Identifying a solution and joint jurisdiction funding option should be part of the next steps. I am fully in support of this project. And I think, let me see. Yep, okay, that ends our public comment period. No one opted to be heard live.
Very good. I think, Charlie, you wanted to weigh in on something?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, will the commission members have a chance to speak before we close the meeting?
Sure.
Yes, sir. The next item is actually various discussion items. Any other discussion items? So if you have one, please.
Yes, good timing. Thank you. I was concerned today, and I think most of you will be as well, to see that there was a notice that was sent out today from the Charleston County Board of Zoning Appeals for 9 variance requests and 2 special exception requests to allow a gas plaza and fast food restaurant to be built at the corner of Old Parsonage Road and Ashley River Road, which is of course the Church Creek site that we were told was going to be a public park and a fire station. I'm aware of some of the background of this and don't know that we need to get into it tonight, but I wanted all of you to be aware that that request was out there for 9 zoning variances and 2 special exceptions to allow for what is possibly the worst use that could ever go at that corner. And I hope you all will get up to speed on it. I have made some comments on it today that I've put into writing and sent to some folks that I thought would be concerned about it. And I'm happy to share that with you if anyone cares to have it. Thank you.
And I saw those emails, Charlie, that you were sending out to us, and I was going to follow back up with you later about that. And this is all in the county, right?
That's correct. But that site, of course, is surrounded by property that is in the city, and it also goes right up to the critical area for Church Creek. It's within 1,000 feet of the St. Andrew's Parish Church, and most of that 1,000 feet, I'd say probably half of that 1,000 feet is protected wetlands between the 2 areas of high ground. So while it would not be able to go for historic preservation review because it doesn't meet those guidelines, I think it's important that we look at the larger picture here and also look at the fact that for a decade, we have been trying to get that site cleaned up and redeveloped in a form that is an improvement for the neighborhood and provides the services that we need. We were told it was going to be a park and a fire station, and that's what it needs to be.
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
If I might comment, the park and the fire station, I think John DeStefano can probably speak to that. The plan was always that the 4.2 acres behind that frontage acreage, that's where the park and the playground are going. The PSD is well underway and they're planning for that. The BZA meeting is February 1st, I believe. So you can certainly make comments to the county BZA about those variances that have been requested. Is John still on? He may be able to speak to where they are in their planning process for the 4.2 acres that are still have always been planned and will continue to be the fire station and the park.
Yeah, Charlie, we're well into the planning stage on the fire station as well as the preserved green space. Part of the arrangement with the proposed developer, and it's only going to, it would be the hard corner. We honestly had no idea what they were planning to do until really today. Part of the project involves shared stormwater, which of course the green belt site will be designed around, and considerable easements, buffers between the two. Unfortunately, when it first came out, it was a bit misleading. I was called by Christy Holderness, our district manager, in a panic, as you can imagine, because it did reference the entire parcel. We've already got an engineered survey, a subdivision of that parcel. The original green space, the original plan that we worked out with the county, that does not change.
My concern is that what they're proposing, and I've seen where they're proposing to put this plaza, it would be, this is another one of those really important community crossroads that we have worked so hard to make sure get redeveloped correctly. And it is exactly the kind of thing that we discussed just last month at Sycamore in 61 with the same applicant. So this is a pattern. I think we need to start to come down hard on making sure that these important corners are done correctly, and putting a gas plaza and getting 9 variances, which include, by the way, widening the ingress and egress onto 61 within 150 feet of the intersection, where there is also a bus stop in the middle of that space. There are all kinds of things going on at this intersection, and for anyone to come in and think that it's appropriate to request variance requests like this on a site that we have worked so hard over the last decade to make sure it gets redeveloped right is just wrong. And frankly, I think it's disrespectful, just as I felt like last month's application was disrespectful, where Sycamore Avenue and 61 were. And I think it's time for us to have a real sit down with these folks and let them know that that the community has spoken out on this on numerous occasions over the last decade. It is not in compliance with the county's own comp plan for what they're proposing. And by the way, I was told that the reason for this was that the money that was allocated from the Greenbelt for the acquisition of this property was no longer sufficient to meet the current market value of the property, and that they were doing this to make up the difference. And that's not a good enough reason. If we need to look at a valuation change that's happened since the Greenbelt money was allocated for this, then that's what we need to do. We don't need to go shoving a gas plaza at the middle of one of the most important intersections in that community. It's just wrong.
Some good points on that. This is would border on, I'm trying to remember what city council district this would be bordering along. I think it's going to be Councilmember Shealy.
It's Shealy's, yeah.
This would, so we need to bring him into on this conversation as well. Councilmember Moody and Charlie. If he's not aware of this, I think he should be made aware of what's transpiring.
Well, Charlie, and I can assure you that this project is too important to the PSD and the county. And we've got contingencies in place that we have discussed internally. That if the deal with the private developer falls apart, then the PSD can step in, take over the project, and work it out from there.
Well, I sure hope so, because they own one of the corners of Wapu and Savannah Highway too, and they probably own some other ones. But I'm concerned about what these people think they can do. They need to read some of our documents and see what the public has said and what we've said. This is just unacceptable.
So the hearing date, the meeting date is February 3rd?
February 1st, sir.
February 1.
February 1st.
The 1st.
And we don't have another WARC meeting between now and then. So I wanted to bring this up tonight and ask that City Council give some serious consideration to objecting to this. We've got property around it, and I think it's probably going to lead to a jurisdiction shopping situation. If the county says no, they're probably going to come to the city and say, well, will the city let us do it? I think we should say no as well. It's just inappropriate.
Yeah. So I think, Charlie, the points you bring up are very important points and things we need to be considering. But I think we probably need to look at this and coordinate with John and with Councilmember Moody and Councilmember Shealy on this and see what kind of unified response we should be giving back to them. So I'll follow back up with you to see what would be another step or what we should be doing with this and how to respond to those variance requests.
Thanks so much.
Sure. And I appreciate you bringing it to our attention. And I did see the emails earlier today that you were sending out. So that's very important. And for us to make sure we're consistent with our Plan West Ashley and our implementation plans. Any other business we want to bring up? My God, it's almost.
Yes, sir. So we have, I know Commissioner Jenkins has an announcement to make. I just wanted to go ahead and brief you guys real quick that I'm expecting a rough draft document of the branding pamphlet, the first rough draft of the first branding pamphlet this week. So after I get that, I'll be sending it around to you guys so you can review it. In addition to that, we met this past Monday with the work group looking at the design guidelines that we kicked off in November and December, talking about those. We met last Monday. We're starting to drill down into some good suggestions for massing and how the urban streetscape should be addressed when new construction comes along in the city DRB. And there's something else. We are talking with the developers of Sycamore Center again as a small work group on Thursday regarding their most recent submittal to the city for the Design Review Commission, or Design Review Board, sorry. So we'll be talking with them tomorrow as a small work group for that one. And then I will stop talking now and turn it over to Ms. Jenkins, who has some extremely exciting news for West Ashley and the city.
Good evening, everybody. I won't take up too much of your time. I know we're at the end, but just wanted to share that the International African American Museum had been meeting with the group, they call themselves Dinner in Maryville, which consists of Diane and Charlie and Donna and Ina. And we had been talking for the past year just about what Maryville has done, what they've been doing, the history, and just how that information can be incorporated into the International African American Museum. Well, as of today, the museum, well, not as of today, the museum has been for a while now working with the Google Arts and Culture, which is a digital platform for museums and cultural institutions to use display exhibits, stories through text and images. And so we've been nurturing that relationship with Google Arts and Culture. But as of today, Google Arts and Culture would like to have its first exhibit for Black History Month. And so we have chosen the Maryville history to be that first exhibition. And so that is just huge and major for West Ashley and for Maryville to be able to engage in this really exhibition that thousands of people will be able to see. Now we are, it's for Black History Month, so we have a deadline of January 22nd. So we all have some really, really long days and nights to try to put this exhibition together. And we started today just kind of working with Tony Carrier, who's our director for Center for Family History. But in addition to that, some of you may have seen that we have gotten a grant from Michelin, and Michelin wants to focus on the Center for Family History. And so the exhibition for Maryville may be able to be a traveling exhibit as well. So there's a great opportunity for some real good history and knowledge around Maryville, and hopefully some other things to come. But we just wanted to share that with you all tonight. And we're meeting generally every day or every other day to put all of these documents together. So just wanted to give you that really wonderful celebration.
And last night, City Council approved the contract to go forward with the development of the Carl Richardson Park as well. So a lot of stuff is going over there in Maryville, Ashleyville. Yes, Ms. Hamilton.
Yes, I'd like to add to what Ms. Commissioner Jenkins just said. Things are really coming together. The book that I was working on for the Maryville, Ashleyville area has now gone to the publishers. The title is Maryville, The Audacity of a People. And a lot of the materials that was pulled together for that research will be utilized for the digital platform and for other things. And a lot of our materials will be donated to the museum afterwards. Donna, Charlie, Ina, and I will be gathering all of the documentation to place in the exhibit.
That's just terrific. I mean, it really is very exciting stuff that's happening over there. And what a treat. I mean, Reverend Jenkins, thanks for bringing that to our attention. And keep us up to date and inform all of y'all as to how these things are unfolding and the events are taking place over in Maryville, Ashleyville. Really exciting stuff. Who says there's no history in West Ashley?
That's all in West Ashley is history.
Yep.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, we do have one member of the public has raised their hand. Would you care to have them speak?
Sure.
Gosh.
Unmute. Okay, I'm here. Hi, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I am a small business owner, and I have a large property close to Maryville. And I would, if there's anything I can do to help you guys, I own an acre of property not far from you, and if you need like anything going forward, since I'm close to your community, you can contact me anytime. I'm right past Playground Road on Ashley River Road, 1411.
Yeah.
Ashley River Road. It's not far from Playground Road. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, my name's Molly McAdams, and it's a Purple House, Cosmetique, but I have plenty of parking. I've got, and you know, if there's anything I can do by like even handing out flyers or pamphlets, since I'm right there in your area when that comes out. My son also works for the Maritime Center, and so he's right there every single day within the construction of the new museum. So if he can take anything to his work as well to help, we would be happy to.
Thank you so much. That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
You can stop at any time and come see me.
All right.
And I'll be glad to help.
All right. Thank you, Molly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Eric, any other issues we got? But I think that's...
No, sir. I believe that will do for this very exciting start to the year.
For the marathon meeting of 2 hours. So we appreciate y'all hanging in there, and we'll see y'all back in March. And hopefully there's nothing that will cause us to intervene between then. But we do have a lot of work to do between now and March. So we'll certainly be back with you on what happens on this February 1st meeting that Charlie has brought to our attention, and the Avondale overlay that Lauren has brought to our attention. We appreciate y'all's participation. Be safe, and we'll stay warm. So we'll see you back in March. Thank you all very much.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.